part of struggle, I've decided that cell. Just know I'm trying to free your mind, get you out of that jail. Tell them crown me king. Tell them crown me king. Tell them crown me king. I'm a crown me king. You know the children are the future, teenage boys and girls. Get your money, start a business, then take over the world. Tell them crown me king. Tell them crown me king. Tell them crown me king. I'm a crown me king.
I am the niece of exploitation on the rice and pancake box. Come to collect the royalties for ancient mama and Uncle Ben. I am refreshing the bones, a witch, a root worker, a sorceress, a priestess, a gangster.
One time for the baby that's black, two times for the lady that's black, three times for the way you get back, four times for the egg cook crack. They shoot you back, flat. 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 One time for the baby that's black, two times for the lady that's black, three times for the way you ain't stack. Revolution like hate like that.
One, two, we are back. Yes, we are back. We are back. Black. You just been black debated. You are tuned to Arisha Street Hop in the morning. Arisha Street Hop in the morning. Arisha Street Hop in the morning. I'm your host, Stick Low, aka Stick Low Swag Low. Once again, black. You just been black debated. Saw some dope videos. We still here with Kwame Haru. Brother Azariah had to make a move. However, we still in the building. We building for the duration. Hey, we're coming to collect the royalties for Ancient Mama and Uncle Ben.
Thanks. As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers. Peace.
You basically know in my ideology, basically, in yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breast of Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things. As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers. Peace.
There's no educational program here?
Just come out and socialize. You set that up. We can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit unions? Credit unions. Credit union, my brother. Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. Owned by the people, run for the people, and by the people.
What would money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to, whatever, the people in the community decide. You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, Dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more leadership about the educational thing here. Because, Dig, as far as we're concerned, struggle, when you look at struggle, is that this depends on the educational thing, Dig. Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but even this does. You can form this with no education. You form this.
No, not the way we talking about forming it. Right. We talking about forming it right. It's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
Form it right with no education.
No.
Let me give you an example. Yomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the end thing, Yomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you can educate hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa died.
Life is full of surprises, but with our tuition guarantee, you don't get any.
Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face. But he moved all the white people out and he took over to be the president. He did, causing no education. And the people that been educated, they said that we don't hate the motherfucker white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white. You basically knowing my ideology, basically you knowing me knowing yours, you can support some of our programs. Is that what you're saying?
Why not?
And you believe in programs like the Breakfast for Children program and free health clinics? Right on, brothers?
We believe they're good things.
Uh-huh.
As a focal point to organize their mothers and fathers.
Uh-huh.
Peace.
Mm-hmm. There's no educational program here?
That's come out of the social license thing. You know, you set that up, but I mean, we can't put everything on one piece of paper.
What about this bank?
Credit union?
Mm-hmm.
Credit union. Credit union, my brother.
Is a bank.
Are you hip to credit unions? It is a bank.
Yeah, you go and borrow money?
Yeah, it's a bank. It's a bank. Owned by the people, run for the people, and by the people.
What would money be given out to people for?
Well, the people would decide that. You want to buy, people in the community decide.
You need some living room furniture, maybe? You need a car, maybe?
See, the thing is with me, you dig, I need to know some more about it. I wish you had some more literature about the educational thing here. Because, you dig, as far as we're concerned in the struggle, when we look at struggle, is that this depends on the educational thing, you dig? Because
this depends on the education. Well, the whole thing.
No, but in the end, this does. You can form this with no education. You can form this.
No, not the way we're talking about forming it. Right. We're talking about forming it right. It's not on the paper. We didn't write it on the paper.
Form it right with no education.
No.
Okay. Let me give you an example. Yomo Kenyatta formed the excellent revolution with no education. And on the day of the end thing, Yomo told the motherfucker, I said, well, you can educate hate the enemy, but I'm your brother. I'll help you lead the revolution. Now I'm more pressure. Another example, Papa Doc in Haiti. Papa Doc in Haiti hated everything white. Man, you couldn't put this white paper in front of Papa Doc's face, but he moved all the white people out and he took over to be the president. He did, causing no education. And the people that have been educated, they just said that we don't hate the motherfucker white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know the educational program to find out what is going to be in the finale. A lot of people, Yomo Kenyatta is called never a revolutionary, but an ex-revolutionary. So it's Papa Doc. They brought on a successful revolution. That thing in the Mao's was a bitch. Bantu freedom fighters, all that kind of action. What we're saying is the end. But you don't judge Castro now. You can't do it. Nobody in this room could judge whether Castro's going to be a revolutionary or not. You know what I mean? We're talking about things, you know what I mean, with China, the People's Republic, and even at the stage they're in now, talking about even going on further into a communistic state. That's what we're talking about. Those are revolutionary. So we got to understand here the educational program that you have to be able to figure out whether it will go on the right lines where the people will end up in a situation where they can be able to really control themselves. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, the people take this local foundation and start stealing money because they won't be really educated to why it's the people's thing anyway. You understand what I'm saying? With no education, you have neo-colonialism instead of colonialism like you got in Africa 9, like you got in Haiti. So what we're talking about is there has to be an educational program. That's very important. As a matter of fact, it's so important for us that a person has to go through 6 weeks of our political education before he can consider himself a member of the party, able to even run down ideology for the party. Why? Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. You might get people caught up in the emotionalist movement. You understand me? You might get them caught up in because they're poor and they want something. And then if they're not educated, they want more. And before you know it, they'll be capitalists. And before you know it, we have Negro imperialists. Of the state of, I'm the deputy chairman of the state of Illinois Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton. And a lot of people don't understand the Black Panther Party's relationship with white mother country radicals. A lot of people don't even understand the words that they're using a lot. But what we're saying is that there are white people in the mother country that are for the same types of things that we are for stimulating revolution in the mother country. And we said that we will work with anybody and form coalition with anybody that has revolution on their mind. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism. And we know that racism is just it's a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people. And we're going to have to put it back in the hands of the people. Everybody in the state of Illinois is going to have to be involved or even around the revolution because we're going to have one. We're going to have to do more than talk. We're going to have to do more than listen. We're going to even have to do more than learn. We're going to have to start practicing, and that's very hard. We're going to have to start learning, and you learn through practice. We got to start making mistakes, and you learn through making mistakes. We got to start getting out there with the people. And a lot of times we think we're better than the people. That's an insult, and that's criminal. Think you're better than the people. We got to get together and learn where it's at. It's going to take a lot of hard work. Education for children is something else. You ought to dig on it. Every sister in this audience. Every sister in this audience ought to get themselves together and come on down and help us with that Breakfast for Children program. You ought to come down and help feed them children in the morning. We have Breakfast for Children because we teach the people through practice, through observation and participation, that people can be fed free. That's the people's thing. Socialism is the people. You're afraid of yourself. If you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself. We know they have our pictures. We know they're looking for us. We know they want us. But we're still saying that even though we could be in a sense, as far as this system goes, on the mountaintop, we in the Black Panther Party, because of our dedication and understanding what's in the valley, knowing that the people in the valley, knowing that we originally came from the valley, knowing that our flag is the same flag as the people in the valley, knowing that our enemy is on the mountaintop, our friends are in the valley. We say even though it's nice to be on the mountaintop, we're going back to the valley. I be in the office every day. I be in the streets propagandizing every day. I be working with everybody every day. I be teaching that solidarity is the thing. The end of a complete wipeout of imperialism is the thing. So if you're going to be thinking about me, that's what Bobby would be teaching. If you're going to be thinking about us, all we say is ain't no thing about going nowhere, getting killed. All we want to know is that you're doing what we'd be doing if we were here. And you got to do that. You can't do it unless you believe that you can do it. In the spirit of liberation, we understand that they want everybody in the party in jail. And we know that if we try to figure out and separate and divide who should go and who shouldn't go, we spend more time doing that than working for the people. So the quick solution, the speedy one, nobody goes. Nobody goes. We all stay right here. With the people. Because we love people. Okay, you put your hands down now. We say all power to all people. We say white power to white people. Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people. X power to those that we left out. We say Panther power to the Vanguard Party. When you leave here saying the last word. Now, before you go to bed tonight, I am a revolutionary. Make that the last word. In case you don't wake up, then somebody might believe it, and you might, end up in what they call revolutionary happy hunting ground. Say that. I am a revolutionary. Say it when you're going out. Everybody wants to leave. Okay, we're going to say it while we're going out. Hey, we're going to start a thing called Free Friend. Don't that sound nice? Hey, let's do that. Free Friend. Free Friend. Free Friend. Free Friend. Hey, I ain't even in jail yet.
Fred, where does the Black Panther Party stand concerning the weathermen, the SDS?
We stand way back from the SDS and the weathermen because the weathermen action, there's two actions. There's RIM 2 and weatherman. We think they could call them both national action. We think that RIM 2 is national action, weatherman is national reaction, you know. We think it is anarchistic, individualistic, it's chauvinistic, it's customistic, and that's the bad part about it. It's customistic in that its leaders take people into situations where the people can be massacred. Evolution is nothing but child's play, it's folly, and it's criminal because people can be hurt. We say that they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do. When they take people down and just do nothing, play around, and the pigs are prepared for this, and they'll wipe all of those young people out. We think these people may be sincere, but they're misguided, they're muddleheads, and they're scatterbrains. The only way we can show them is to criticize them like we're doing right now, and then leave from here and go to the federal building and have a demonstration that's to educate, a demonstration that is disciplined and organized, you know. And that's what we're gonna have to do, and let them see the examples.
Tell me why you feel the approach of the SDS weatherman is wrong.
I feel it is wrong, just as I said before.
No, don't tell me just you said before. That's why I asked you again. Just answer it straight, just in case we use this part.
I feel that it's
Let
wrong.
me ask you again. Why do you feel that the approach of the SDS weatherman is the wrong approach?
I feel that it's wrong because it's pig action. You see, they're doing exactly what the pigs want them to do. They're leading people into a situation where it's an astronomical situation, too great for the people to deal with. It's a situation where you got a bunch of mechanical pigs with 357 Magnums and shotguns and mechanical mace and all that type of thing. And then they're talking about they're going to carry on a revolutionary struggle. That's not revolution, it's insanity, it's madness, it's nostalgia, and it's a massacre. That's what it's potential massacre, that's what it is. And we don't support that because we've said all power to the people. All the power is manifested in the people. We don't have any people whose lives we believe that should be thrown away.
Has the weatherman SDS tried to get you to go on their side? Have you met with them, and what happened?
We met with the weatherman faction of SDS several times. We've had ideological struggles and we have ideological differences. So what we did was we had the other faction of SDS that agreed with the Black Panther Party called for an alternate action, a well-disciplined action not to provoke pigs, an action not to talk about setting up confrontations with the pigs because the people are not ready for confrontation. These confrontations that they have are premature. They're politically premature and they're wrong because they commit people in a situation which they're not anywhere prepared for.
Well, why do you think the weatherman SDS tried to link the Black Panther Party to its movement?
I don't know if it was actually the weathermen of SDS. I'd have to say that it was the establishment press that is nothing but a tool of Warden Nixon's machine. We call him Warden Nixon because the whole world is a penitentiary and he's just a warden of the whole world. And you see, these people are just an arm that he uses for fascist oppression, you know. And I think today these fascist news media might have did that.
Now, briefly, how would you sum up what the weatherman SDS is trying to do and what you think of what they're trying to do?
I'd say that basically they believe that white people need to learn how to struggle, that they believe that these white workers need to learn how to struggle through confrontations. I'd have to say that basically I believe that this is incorrect. I believe that white workers have been struggling. They're some of the most violent people in the world. I believe that what they need is they need a redirection in their ideology and in their politics. They need to know who to struggle against. The workers need to start to begin to learn that their job is to struggle against the bosses. And until they do this, then struggle is incorrect. It's like no struggle at all. We say that if you don't struggle correctly, you shouldn't struggle. But you should struggle. We said dare to struggle and you dare to win, dare not to struggle and you don't deserve to win. But we have to struggle properly.
What about the special approach of weatherman, which seems to be violence?
Well, you see, I don't think it's really violence, you know what I mean? I think it's just a lot of folly, a lot of child's play. I think that to have violence, you've got to be able to cope with violence, you know what I mean? And that's what the Black Panther Party, a lot of people say we're violent. We're a self-defense organization that believes that the people should be educated to what's going on. Yes, we do defend our offices and we do defend our homes. This is a constitutional right. Everybody has, there's nothing funny about that. The only reason they get mad at the Black Panther Party when they do it is for the simple reason that we're political. And they don't want to admit this. There are a lot of young organizations around, but we are a political organization. We are an organization that understands that politics is nothing but war without bloodshed and war is nothing but politics with bloodshed. That it's just like you stretch something and it goes, you can stretch things, they'll go into being another thing. If you stretch politics so long, it'll be war. And that's where we're at.
Well, then why do you feel it's so important for the Black Panther Party to disavow any real link with the Weatherman SDS?
I think it's important because there are a lot of people that watch the Black Panther Party for examples. They observe us and participate with us. And if we can be connected up with this, then it will be very unadvantageous to the people and very unadvantageous to the struggle, in that people that claim to be revolutionary would be going down roads that they think might be revolution, but in fact they're not roads of revolution. They'll be going east when their intentions are going west. And also it's important because Chairman Bobby Seale is in town, and he's being tried by this fascist judge Adolf Hitler Hoffman, and he's being tried without a lawyer. And we've got to bring all of the attention and focus on this trial that we possibly can, so that people can understand that these people are more capable of building gas chambers than Hitler ever was capable of building gas chambers. And we're going to have to get together. We're going to have some anti-gas chamber marches, and some anti-fascism marches, and some anti-Hitler Hoffman marches, and some anti-Mussolini Attorney General Mitchell marches, and some anti-Daley and some anti-Hammerhead marches. These are the things we're going to have to do. The people need to be educated. If they're educated, we can resist and we can stop this fascism.
Okay. All right. Thanks for giving us the second shot. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks. All right.
That's too hot, Bill. Too hot? Go, Howard.
Fred, the Weatherman branch of the SDS seems to be giving the impression that the Black Panther Party is with them.
No, the Black Panther Party is not with Weatherman. Let me explain very clearly that we believe that action like that is action of insanity. It's not a revolution even. You see, going out in the streets and getting people shot and killed and maimed, that's insanity. It's chauvinistic and it's custoristic. And when we say custoristic, we mean it's a type of action on the part of a leadership that would lead people into the same thing that Custer led them in. We believe that all action around that Weatherman faction is going to turn out to be a little bighorn. And we're not getting involved in any little bighorns in the city of Chicago. The Black Panther Party intends to support anything that is disciplined, anything that does not provoke violence on the part of the pig power structure, because this is what they want to do. They want to kill some people. And these leaders are nothing but leaders who have custoristic tendencies. They will lead people into slaughters. And we think that that's it's criminal to the people. It's a crime against the people.
Cut it for a minute. That's real good. Now I want to put it just one other way. I'm going to ask you, why don't you...
Go.
Fred, why doesn't the Black Panther Party support the tactics of the Weatherman SDS?
We don't support those tactics because they are acts of provocation, and they're acts that the pigs, the policemen in the city enjoy. They're doing just what the police want them to do. Our actions are just the opposite from that. We are educating the people to the wrongs that the pigs commit to the fascists around the country, and I think that's the proper way to do the thing.
Has the Weathermen tried to curry favor with the Black Panthers?
Right. We've had several discussions with the Weathermen, and we've tried to talk them out of a lot of the anarchistic demonstrations that they have planned here. We tell them that we don't believe in demonstration for the sake of demonstration. We believe in demonstration for the sake of education, and we still go on that basic theory. We believe that people need to be educated if we ever going to defend ourselves against the fascism that's running rampant in the United States of America and all over the world today. How
violent do you think the Weathermen are looking to become?
I don't think it's really a question of violence. I think it's a we call it muddleheadedness. You know what I mean? I think how muddlehead will they become is the question. How masochistic and anarchistic will they become? You know what I mean? How much will they enjoy seeing people slaughtered in the streets before they come around and get them a plan of well-disciplined, well-organized type of education demonstration where the people can be saved. We say all power to the people, and all power is manifested in the people. We don't have any people to just throw away and throw their lives away. We think that people that throw the people's lives away in these types of counter-revolutionary folly, those people are criminals, and they should be judged as such. And these people that commit crimes against the people should try them and indict them and sentence them.
Tell me, Fred, because the Black Panther Party feels this way, and because the Panthers have been linked with Weathermen through the Weathermen, have you tried in any way to dissuade the Weathermen, to stop them from this kind of tactic?
We've talked to Weathermen time and time again, you know what I mean, and told them that we thought this was wrong. And let me say this: I don't believe these people I think they're some sincere people, but I think they're a little mixed up. That's why I be very careful about the word I use. I try to use words like muddle-headed, you know what I mean, and scatterbrains. That's what they are. They're some young people who really have some revolutionary fervor, but they don't know how to direct that fervor. So what we're going to have to do is try to rechannel that into some type of revolutionary discipline. I think if anybody looks at us, we're an example. We try to set examples for the people. The Black Panther Party is the most disciplined organization in the country, and the pigs still attack the Black Panther Party office. So that shows that we're still doing something to the power structure, but we don't have to do it in a way where we put people's lives online. That's not necessary, and we try to tell them that.
Okay, tell me what else you want to get off your chest.
I'd like to tell you, there's one thing that's very important to the people, that they see that so-called trial at the federal building is nothing but what I call a hecatomb. It's a public sacrifice where they're slaughtering the leaders of the people, and the only way we're going to stop that is the people resist that, you know what I mean? Because it's not a question of non-violence or violence, it's a question of resistance to fascism, a non-existence. And this is what we're going to have to deal with. We're going to have to go down to the federal building and deal with that judge. We call him Judge Adolf Hitler Hoffman, and deal with the Attorney General Mussolini Mitchell. All these people that have these fascist tendencies, they have this society is more technical than the German society ever was. They are going to be a better and more adequate gas chambers, and we've got to be prepared to deal with that. Education is the only way. We've got to educate the people.
You got anything else you want to say?
No, not particularly.
All right. Look, just want to do some.
Black Panther Party was concerned, William O'Neill was one of their most loyal brothers in arms, the head of security for the Black Panthers in Chicago. He was tasked with an enormously important job, guarding the group's leader Fred Hampton. But little did the Panthers know that O'Neill had infiltrated the organization on behalf of the FBI. A car thief by trade, O'Neill had been arrested in 1966 for driving a stolen vehicle across state lines. Authorities had offered him a deal: infiltrate the Black Panther Party or rot in prison. Not only did O'Neill successfully join the Black Panthers, he also gained the trust of Hampton, the beloved chairman of the Illinois chapter. But behind the scenes, O'Neill was secretly providing the FBI with a floor plan of Hampton's apartment. This allowed the Chicago police to raid the building and murder Fred Hampton in his sleep on December 4, 1969. The brutal attack sent shockwaves across Black America. It had only been a year and a half since the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., and now, a beloved Black Panther was dead at the hands of the police. Tragically, police brutality had been one of the main issues that Hampton had been fighting against. While the story of Hampton's death is fairly well known, O'Neill's involvement in the matter often goes overlooked. As chronicled in the 2021 film Judas and the Black Messiah, O'Neill's role in Hampton's tragic end was only revealed in 1973. Subsequently placed in witness protection under an assumed name, O'Neill would later say that he felt no remorse for being an informant. However, he also admitted that he was not a happy man, and in 1990 O'Neill took his own life at age 40, on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This is the little-known story of William O'Neill, the Black Panther who betrayed Fred Hampton. How William O'Neill became an FBI informant. William O'Neill was born on April 9, 1949. From a young age, the native Chicagoan lived a life of crime as a car thief on the city's west side. In 1966, when he was about 17 years old, he was caught stealing a car and driving it across state lines. If he had been arrested by local police, he might have languished in prison for years, but instead, he was tracked down by FBI agent Roy Martin Mitchell, and this moment would change O'Neill's life forever. As O'Neill would later reveal to his uncle Ben Hurd, his criminal experience was far more extensive than simply stealing cars. By 1966, he'd already been in trouble for everything from home invasion to kidnapping. The stolen car charge was just the cherry on top. But William O'Neill soon learned from Mitchell that all would be forgiven if he was willing to work for the FBI. Around this time, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had made it his mission to prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant black nationalist movement. This fear largely stemmed from the fact that the Black Panthers were becoming more and more popular, but Hampton in particular stood out among the pack. Born just outside Chicago on August 30, 1948, Hampton got involved in civil rights activism early on. When he was just a young teenager, he pushed his school to allow black girls to compete for homecoming queen and rallied for an integrated pool and recreational center. Before long, he joined the NAACP and was marching alongside Martin Luther King Jr. But after experiencing violence from anti-civil rights protesters, Hampton became disillusioned with King's nonviolent approach and began to lean more toward Malcolm X's message of self-defense. From there, he entered the Black Panther Party in 1968, quickly assuming a leadership position. The FBI feared that Hampton could become the next Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr. and unite America's impoverished citizenry against the status quo, and so Mitchell made William O'Neill a deal. If he joined the Black Panthers as an FBI informant and provided the Bureau with information on Hampton's activities, he wouldn't get into any trouble for his crimes. O'Neill agreed. The betrayal of Fred Hampton. Since the FBI had struggled to stop the Black Panthers from organizing, infiltration seemed more imperative to them than ever, and since Hampton appeared to be quickly rising in the ranks of the organization, they paid especially close attention to him. But Hampton was just one of many black leaders victimized by COINTELPRO, the FBI's secret and illegal program that disrupted anti-establishment movements like the Black Panther Party. The fact that Hampton was campaigning so hard against police brutality and corruption made his treatment at the hands of those very police all the more tragic. While Hampton was establishing free breakfast programs for children and negotiating a truce between Chicago street gangs, William O'Neill was tracking his every move and reporting everything back to the FBI. Although the FBI was initially interested in disrupting the breakfast program, as they claimed it was indoctrinating children, their attention quickly turned to the group's supply of weapons and whether or not Hampton was on any drugs. All the while, Hampton didn't know that his head of security was spying on him and undermining his work. He also had no idea that O'Neill was providing the FBI with a floor plan of his apartment so that authorities could break in on that fateful night in 1969. Perhaps most shocking of all is that William O'Neill reportedly drugged Hampton with a barbiturate on the night of December 3, 1969, so that he wouldn't wake up during the raid. Meanwhile, the floor plan that O'Neill had given to the FBI had already been handed off to Chicago police, who were instructed to raid Hampton's home and seize the illegal weapons inside. That night, Hampton was in a deep sleep beside his pregnant fiancée, Deborah Johnson, who now goes by Akua and Jerry. At about 4:45 a.m. on December 4, 1969, 14 plainclothes officers stormed the apartment, armed with pistols, shotguns, machine guns, and the floor plan. They barged into the home and quickly headed toward Hampton's bedroom. Around this time, and Jerry remembers someone shaking Hampton, saying, "Chairman, Chairman, wake up, pigs are vamping."
I don't leave anybody behind. Not ever.
AMC Plus has got the final season of The Walking Dead.
That is what's out there.
And the return of the Doctor. Who are you?
And Jerry said, they just stormed the entranceway to the rear bedroom and they were shooting. It seemed like forever. I understand it only lasted 10 minutes. They were shooting into the mattress. The plaster was flying off and the mattress was vibrating. And then the person that had come in to wake Fred up kept saying, "Stop shooting. Stop shooting. We got a pregnant sister here." Eventually, they did stop and Jerry left the room. Despite her visible pregnancy, an officer reportedly dragged her over to the kitchen area, and then the officers started shooting again. And Jerry continued, "I remember someone saying that Fred was barely alive or he might not make it, and then they started shooting again, and then it stopped. Someone said, "He's good and dead now." I knew they had killed Fred at this point. Hampton was just 21 years old when he died. Soon afterward, 7 Panthers in the building were arrested and indicted by a grand jury on charges of attempted murder, armed violence, and weapons charges. But these charges were eventually dropped during a later investigation, when it was revealed that the police had fired nearly 100 shots in total, and the Panthers had only shot once. Mark Clark was the only Panther to fire a single bullet, and the 22-year-old was fatally shot in the heart as a result. O'Neill's disappearance in the aftermath of Hampton's death. William O'Neill and his uncle visited Hampton's apartment that same morning after he had been shot. "There was paper strewn all over the floor, blood all over," said Ben Hurd. "There was a trail of blood from where they had dragged Fred's body." Bill just stood there in shock. He never thought it would come to all this. Unfortunately, it had. Clark and Hampton were dead, while several other Panthers had been wounded and charged with serious crimes. Meanwhile, the Chicago police shared news of their success and praised their officers for their bravery and professional discipline in not killing all the Panthers present. They claimed that the Panthers opened the battle by firing a shotgun blast through the apartment door, and even filmed a reenactment of the supposed incident to appear on television. But the story from the police quickly began to fall apart. A report by the Sun-Times revealed that the so-called bullet holes that police showed to back up their claims were actually nail heads. And sure enough, a 1970 grand jury investigation found that nearly all of the empty shells and bullets at the scene had been fired by police weapons, not Panther weapons. Nonetheless, a coroner's jury ruled that the deaths of Hampton and Clark were both justifiable homicides, and O'Neill's involvement in the attack came to light in 1973, much to the fury of the black community. Quickly whisked into witness protection, William O'Neill lived as William Hart in California for several years after being outed as an informant, but he secretly returned to Chicago in 1984 and worked for an attorney. Just 2 years prior, the Justice Department, the city of Chicago, and Cook County had settled a $47 million civil suit filed by the families of Clark and Hampton for $1.82 million. Even then, a Justice Department attorney insisted that this settlement did not mean an admission of any wrongdoing. As for O'Neill, he had divorced his wife, remarried, and had no real friends at that point. In 1984, he spoke of his past for the first time with the Chicago Tribune and admitted that he had been just a pawn in a very big game. He would later appear in a public television series called Eyes on the Prize, in which he'd talk a little more about his role. While he didn't express remorse for his role as an informant, he did express sadness and anger over Hampton's death. "I knew it would be a raid, but I didn't feel like anyone would get killed, especially not Fred," he said. "It was blood everywhere, and it was holes in the wall, and I just began to realize that the information that I had supplied leading up to that moment had facilitated that raid." He once reflected, "I think if I look back at myself, I say if I had never met Mitchell, I would probably be in jail or dead." But he also said, "If you ask me if I'm a happy man, I'm not happy. No, I'm not even content." The death of William O'Neill. In 1990, William O'Neill killed himself on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He spent his final hours at his uncle's home, where he acted out of sorts. "We were just sitting around drinking beer, talking to some friends of mine," said Ben Hurd. "We had company. The company left, and that's when he started acting kind of strange and repeatedly going to the bathroom. He'd stay in there 10 or 15 minutes, he said. The last time he stayed 20 minutes, he came out in a rage and he tried to jump out my living room window on the second floor. I stopped him. I grabbed him by the ankles. I wrestled with him, but he broke free and he ran out the door. I just had my house shoes and pants on," said Hurd. "I couldn't run after him like that. I couldn't have caught him anyway. There was a woman standing in front of the house and she said, 'Lord, it sounds like somebody got hit on the expressway.'" Indeed, around 2:30 a.m., O'Neill had run across the Eisenhower Expressway, and he was hit by a car in the process. By the time Hurd caught up to O'Neill, his nephew's eyes were wide open and his pulse was slowly fading away. He was 40 years old when he died. The traumatized driver who hit O'Neill swore he had tried to swerve and avoid him, but wasn't able to do so in time. Though O'Neill never explicitly expressed regret for his work as an informant, he did admit that he felt awful that Hampton died, so it was widely believed that O'Neill committed suicide due to the guilt he felt about playing a role in Hampton's death. Hampton's brother Bill agreed, and said it was something O'Neill tried to live with and couldn't. As explored in Judas and the Black Messiah, the story of William O'Neill betraying Hampton is a tragic and complicated one, After all, O'Neill was quite young when he was pushed into his controversial role as an FBI informant, but he never backed out of the job, even in the face of tragedy. And even though Hampton made a huge impact on people while he was alive, he missed out on the chance to live a long life and perhaps make an even bigger impact. O'Neill was clearly aware of this, as he once mused that Hampton might have been a successful politician if he'd lived. "I think he was sorry he did what he did," said Hurd. "He thought the FBI was only going to raid the house, but they shot Fred Hampton and made sure he was dead."
Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. How are you?
Three children, and he grew up in Mayfield, Illinois, which is a working class suburb of Chicago. His parents moved. Welcome, I'm Country Boy, and this is One My Black History. Today's episode is about the life of Fred Hampton. Hampton was a young, gifted leader with a talent for organizing people who would rise to become chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. Without further ado, let's get started. Fred Hampton was born in August 30th, 1948. He was the youngest of three children, and he grew up in Mayfield, Illinois, which is a working class suburb of Chicago. His parents moved from Louisiana as part of the Great Migration. Very early on, he demonstrated natural leadership abilities, and in the summer of 1967, he would become president of the Youth Council for the local chapter of the NAACP. He helped organize a student boycott of his high school, Provisional East High, when black girls were excluded from becoming homecoming queen. When the black students protested, the white students responded with violence, beating the black students with bats and blackjacks. Hampton organized a group of black students to help fight back. And in response to the violence, the Maywood police imposed martial law and set up checkpoints around the city's black neighborhoods. Hampton brought in representatives from the national NAACP and helped lead a boycott of Provisional East High, demanding a retraction of martial law. It was during this time in 1968 that Bobby Rush was co-directing a small student nonviolent coordinating committee chapter in Chicago. He had an ongoing relationship with Stokely Carmichael, who was the chairman of the SNCC. As tensions heightened between Stokely and other SNCC members in the spring of 1968, following Martin Luther King's assassination, Stokely would encourage Rush to start his own Black Panther chapter in Chicago. According to Rush, the problem with the SNCC is that they didn't have any specific activities. Stokely arranged for Rush to travel to California to meet with David Hilliard and Bobby Seale of the Black Panther Party. The Panthers were impressed with Bobby Rush's approach, and he began to seek partners to build a Black Panther chapter in Chicago. When Rush heard Fred Hampton speak at the Black Leadership Conference headquarters at the Chicago's gang, the Black Keystone Nation, Rush recruited Hampton to join the Black Panthers. Then Rush, Hampton, and Bob Brown, Rush's co-director of the SNCC, organized what would soon become the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. In Chicago in the late 60s, gangs were an important political force in Black neighborhoods. None of those were more important than the Blackstone Rangers. From the start in the early 60s, the Rangers focused on community building in addition to their legal activities. As a result, they composed sort of a parallel government on the south side of Chicago, protecting members of their neighborhoods from other gangs and the police and providing the community with services. By the late 60s, they had swallowed up most of the smaller gangs as part of the Keystone Nation and had more than 3,500 members. In December of 1968, having quickly built a powerful base in Chicago, Fred Hampton entered discussions with Ford, who was the leader of the Blackstone Rangers, about merging the Panthers and the Rangers. The merger promised to boost the Panthers' membership and street presence, and Hampton suggested to Ford that they should join forces, and Ford was interested in this idea of a merger. The FBI saw the potential merger of these two groups as a political threat and sought to foster conflict between those groups. The Chicago FBI felt that spreading false rumors that the Black Panther Party was disparaging Ford might result in Ford taking active steps to exact some sort of retribution towards the leadership of the Black Panthers. As discussions deteriorated, the Chicago office of the FBI suggested to their headquarters that the time was right to provoke the Rangers to take violent action by sending Ford letters to Jeff Ford. The FBI field office suggested that sending letters to Ford rather than Hampton because Ford was more likely to respond with violence. The FBI's effort may have helped prevent a merger between the Panthers and the Rangers, but it did not precipitate widespread violence as they had hoped, because Fred Hampton and Jeffrey Ford had figured out that the government was attempting to create a deadly conflict between the two groups. In 1969, Fred Hampton attempted to initiate Chicago Panthers' first free food distribution. Hampton imagined himself as a modern Robin Hood and appropriated an ice cream truck in Maywood, passing out more than 400 ice cream bars to the neighborhood children. The Maywood police arrested him on charges of robbery and assault, and in the subsequent weeks, the Hampton and the Chicago Panthers organized their free breakfast program for children, which opened in April of 1969. Within 2 weeks, the Panthers had fed more than 1,100 children and drew new community support, making it hard to ignore the political aspect of the Fred Hampton case. During the trial that April, Hampton appeared on a local television show publicizing the free breakfast program and appealing for public support of the Black Panthers. On April 9th, 1969, Hampton was convicted of robbery and assault. Hampton was released on $2,000 bail. Hampton planned to appeal his conviction on the grounds that the newspaper articles about the Panthers during the trial prejudiced the jury. Following the ice cream truck trial and the attention that it brought, Hampton called on Chicago Panthers' first press conference, which he challenged the legitimacy of the state, asserting the high morality of the Panthers' revolutionary programs and calling on the people to mobilize to support the Panthers against this repressive government. Hampton argued that the Black Panthers, not the government, acted in the interest of the people and stated that in our case, it should be taken to the people and the people would not tolerate any oppressive system or force that attempts to jail the very people who are attempting to feed hungry children. Hampton announced that Chicago Panthers attempted to establish community patrols of the police, open liberation schools throughout the city, and set up free clinics. The Chicago Panthers sought to mobilize a broad alliance in support of Fred Hampton. The new Chicago Panthers seized the attention of the Black Panthers national leadership. When Chairman Bobby Seale visited Chicago, he joined Hampton and Bobby Rush in a church mobilization and spoke to an audience of Blacks of various classes and of activists of different races, explaining the revolutionary cross-race logic of Hampton and the Black Panthers' ideas. On May 26, 1969, Fred Hampton was sentenced to 2 to 5 years in prison for robbery and assault. Early in 1969, the Chicago Panthers were still small and had garnered very little influence and national attention. While Rush and Hampton teamed up in June of 1968, the Panthers' national office did not officially recognize the chapter until October of 1968, and the first Chicago office did not open until November 1st of 1968. However, in the spring of 1969, their membership exploded. They gathered increasing attention from the national office and local Blacks and progressive allies. By the end of May 1969, with their community programs, allied politics, the Panthers were building a strong organization within Chicago. Each member was required to read at least a dozen books, 6 by Mao Zedong, 3 by Malcolm X, 1 by Huey Newton, Franz Fanon, and Karl Marx. In turn, each member had to help the other members understand the text that they were reading, and the reading reflected the Panthers' increased explicit embrace of Marxism and especially Mao Zedong's theory and ideology. By late May, the Chicago chapter was selling almost 8,000 copies a day of the Black Panther newspaper. And on November 1st, 1968, the Chicago Panthers opened their first office. It represented a formidable force within the community, including a handwritten sign with large text that stated Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. And underneath that sign were huge posters of Panthers' most famous individuals like Huey Newton and Bobby Seale and Eldridge Cleaver speaking. Malcolm X and Emory Douglas painted a picture of Bobby Hutton, who had been killed in a shootout with police, and Huey Newton on a wicker throne. As the Chicago Panthers grew in number and political strength, the state's efforts to repress them escalated. On June 4th, 1969, the FBI broke down the 2 steel doors of the Chicago Panthers office and proceeded to sack the office and arrest 8 Chicago Panthers. The FBI agents told the press that they had found several guns and ammunition within the office, but the weapons did not violate any federal regulations. Bobby Rush held a press conference about the illegal activities of the FBI, and Rush said that the FBI left the office in complete disarray, creating more than $20,000 in damages and confiscating a safe containing $3,000, which the Panthers planned to use to equip a new health clinic that they were hoping to open. Agents even took cereal meant for the free breakfast program. Rush described the raid as part of a concerted national effort by the FBI to crush the Panthers and cited similar raids in other major cities. On the morning of July 4th, 1969, rank-and-file members Larry Robertson and Grady Moore were selling newspapers when they saw 2 police officers questioning patrons about the theft of produce from a nearby market. According to the Panthers, the police lined up more than a dozen individuals against the wall and began harassing them. The police maintained that they were simply investigating the report of stolen produce when Robertson and Moore approached, asking them what they were doing. The officers said that they told Robertson and Moore to leave, and they became belligerent, calling themselves protectors of the community. The Black Panther newspaper reported that Moore and Robertson were not armed, but the police told the press that Robertson drew a gun and started shooting at them, and Robertson was shot 3 times by the police, and both Robertson and Moore were arrested on attempted murder charges. On July 31st of 1969, the Chicago police raided the Black Panther offices for a second time. They arrived at 1:15 in the morning following an afternoon rally outside of the Black Panther offices. 24 police cars shut down the front of the Panther offices, and officers attempted to storm the building. Hampton was in jail on robbery charges, and no other Panther leader was in the office at the time. But 3 rank-and-file members held the police off for 35 minutes until they ran out of ammunition. Eventually, the police shot down the steel door, made their way upstairs, beat the Panthers with rifle butts, badly injuring the group and arresting them on attempted murder charges. According to the Panthers, the police used gasoline to burn the second floor of the Panther offices, and police claimed that the Panthers fired first, sniping at the police cars, and that the fire was caused by tear gas canisters. By this point, the Panthers and their allies understood that they were under siege and prepared for further raids from the Chicago police. Rank and file members began cleaning and readying guns at the Chicago office and recording the blood types of members, and others passed out cloths to be used to cover their mouths and faces in the event of a tear gas attack. On the early morning of October 4th, the police raided the Chicago Black Panther offices for a third time. The raid was almost a repeat of the July 31st police raid, where officers riddled the front door and walls with bullets. Police set the office on fire, smashed equipment, destroyed stores of food designated for the free breakfast program. And after the Panthers' resistance subsided, police arrested 6 party members on charges of attempted murder, alleging that they had tried to snipe police from the headquarters rooftop. Again, the Panthers alleged the police intentionally set the fire, and the National Chief of Staff, David Hilliard, sought to build support for the Panthers' community policing initiative, declaring that the raid provided further proof they needed the community's control of the police. He said that the raids like this one on October 4th in Chicago will continue and escalate unless we move to circulate as soon as possible a petition for community control of the police. With the repeated raids and arrests of the Chicago Panthers, many Black organizations lined up to support the Panthers, believing that such repression was a threat to all Black people and that resisting the oppression of the Panthers was a matter of life and death. In the fall of 1968, the Chicago FBI office had first established a counterintelligence program against the Chicago Black Panther Party. The FBI believed that Fred Hampton's leadership and talent for communication made him a major threat among Black Panther leaders. It began keeping close ties on his activities, and investigations have shown that FBI Chief J. Edgar Hoover was determined to prevent the formation of a cohesive Black movement in the United States. Hoover believed that the Panthers, the Young Patriots, the Young Lords, and similar radical organizations that Hampton had forged in Chicago were stepping stones to the rise of a revolution that could cause radical change in the United States. Agents began closely monitoring the Panthers via wireless wiretaps of their offices and other means, and placed Hampton on the Bureau's agitator index as a key militant leader. The Special Racial Matters Squad organized to spearhead actions against the Chicago Panthers, and Roy Mitchell, the special agent for the squad, was the first person to approach William O'Neill while he was a prisoner at the Cook County Jail and recruited him to infiltrate the Panthers and provide information to the FBI. When the Chicago Panthers offices opened, O'Neill was already on the FBI's payroll and went to the office to join the Black Panther Party, seemingly as an eager recruit. O'Neill soon was appointed Chief of Security for the Chicago Black Panthers. The Chicago FBI worked very closely with local law enforcement, mostly through the offices of Edward V. Hanrama, who worked for the Cook County State's Attorney in November of 1968. Hanrama created the Special Prosecutions Unit, and starting in April of 1969, FBI agent Roy Mitchell worked closely with the state's attorney to target the Black Panthers. In June of 1969, the FBI began coordinating raids of the Chicago Black Panther offices, and a special squad of 9 Chicago police officers was assigned to report directly with the Special Prosecutions Unit, which in turn worked with the FBI's Racial Matters Squad. On the night of November 13th, FBI agent Roy Mitchell met with informant William O'Neill, and he helped map an exact layout of Fred Hampton's apartment, including the specific location of his bed and his nightstand. He asked O'Neill to keep tabs on who was coming and going from the apartment and help determine what weapons were being kept there. With this information, a raiding party of 14 officers arrived at Fred Hampton's apartment at 4:30 in the morning on December 4th to execute a search warrant for illegal weapons. The assault was quick and decisive. Within 15 minutes, Fred Hampton was dead, shot twice in the head while he lay sleeping in his bed. Peoria, Illinois, Panther leader Mark Clark was in Chicago attending a statewide meeting of Panther leaders, and he was also killed. 7 other Panther members in the apartment were arrested on charges of attempted murder, aggravated battery, and unlawful use of weapons. Edward Hanrama told the police the Panthers fired first and continued to shoot repeatedly despite warnings from the police that the police were at the door. The immediate and violent criminal reaction of the occupants in the shooting at the announcement of police officers emphasizing the extreme viciousness of the Black Panther Party. So does their refusal to cease firing at police officers when urged to do so several times. Panther survivors claim that the officers never knocked and came in shooting, and the Chicago FBI viewed the raid as a success due to the information of informant William O'Neal. There was an immediate outpouring of support for Hampton, Clark, and the Black Panther Party. Many members of the community's groups had called for an independent investigation of the incident, and Bob Rush, working with Fred Hampton's mother and father, arranged for an independent autopsy of Hampton. 3 doctors found that Hampton had been killed by bullets shot from an angle slightly above and behind his head as he was lying down. There were no powder burns on his hand, contradicting police claims that Hampton had fired at them. The Panthers used this public attention to organize support for their popular initiatives, offering tours of the apartment where Fred Hampton and Mark Clark had been murdered. In the following weeks, thousands of people, many journalists, flocked to the apartment to mourn the death and consider the evidence for themselves. Panther tours showed the unscathed walls where police had entered and where they were reportedly stood during the raid. Then there were clusters of bullet holes and large pools of blood where the Panthers had been shot. Tours would continue until December 17, 1969, when the Cook County authorities halted them by sealing off the apartment. The National Black Panther Party understood and sought to portray the killing of Hampton and Clark as political assassinations, as part of a national government conspiracy to repress the Panthers. The Panther Chief of Staff, David Hilliard, declared that the organized attempt to destroy the Black Panther Party has been brought to the attention of the American people and the atrociousness of the American government. In terms of its subjects, people are moving for their freedom, and the very fact that they attacked us openly shows that they are brutal people and they are barbarous criminal elements against society. Even people who didn't agree with the revolutionary politics or ideas of the Panthers were concerned that the killing of Hampton and Clark as part of a pattern of government repression that posed a broader threat to freedom in America. Many mainstream political organizations, including the NAACP, CORE, the American Jewish Committee, the mayor's office in Maywood, the Chicago ACLU, and the United Auto Workers, called for independent investigations of the assassinations. The director of the Chicago Urban League would state that whatever the Panthers believe in, they shouldn't be shot like dogs in the street. Tuesday, December 9, 1969, Fred Hampton's parents, working with the Black Panthers and the SCLC, held a memorial service for Fred Hampton. About 5,000 people jammed into a church in Maywood and crowded the outside loudspeakers. Reverend Ralph Abernathy gave the main eulogy, declaring that the United States is successful in crushing the Panthers. It won't be long for they come for the SCLC, the Urban League, and one other organization trying to make things better. Bobby Rush asked for the mourners to challenge the sorrow into an act of support for the struggle. We mourn today, but we should be understood that Fred, that his life was not given in vain, and there won't be any mourning tomorrow. Then all the sorrow was be turned into action. Following the memorial service for Fred Hampton, Hampton's parents sent his body home to be buried in Haynesville, Louisiana, where they had been born. On December 11, 1969, Edward V. Hanramer delivered to the Chicago Tribune an exclusive police photograph of Hampton's apartment, claiming that it proved that the Panthers had initiated the gun battle and had shown bullet holes where the Panthers had fired at police. But after further investigation, the New York Times reported that many of the photos did not represent what the subtitles had claimed. One depicted nail heads in the apartment's door jamb rather than bullet holes, and the other photo that police claimed showed bullet marks outside of the door actually depicted them inside of the door. Hanramer's deceit further fueled community outrage, and even moderate national Black and political leaders began to support the idea of a public investigation. The New York Times would state that the outpouring support for him in the wake of the Hampton and Clark assassinations by quoting one protester, they came in and killed Fred Hampton. And if they can do that to him, they can do that to any of us. In December 9, 1969, an internal Chicago police investigation found no fault on the part of Edward V. Hanramer's SPU unit, and their findings echoed the report of the Cook County coroner. In response to public pressure, the Justice Department appointed a federal grand jury to investigate the killings of Fred Hampton and Clark. On January 6, 1969, Bobby Rush informed press of the results of the blood test of Fred Hampton in an independent autopsy and revealed that he had every dose of Sedanol, a drug used to induce sleep. Rush charged that Hampton had been killed as part of a government conspiracy and Hampton had been drugged by an FBI infiltrator to help facilitate his murder. Hampton's fiancée, Deborah Johnson, who was 8 months pregnant at the time of Fred Hampton's killing and was arrested during the raid, later accounted Hampton's strange behavior on the night of the raid, stating that Hampton never got up in bed during the raid and remained silent. He woke up and lifted his head slightly as guns were being fired, but barely moved or said anything. After the first wave of shooting, police arrested Johnson and pulled her out of the bedroom into the kitchen. She said that she heard officers say that he's barely alive, but he'll make it. Then the police began shooting again, and the police said, well, he's good and dead now. On May 8, 1970, the state attorney Edward V. Hanramer dropped all charges against the 7 surviving Panther members arrested in the December 4th raid, stating that they had no proof that any defendants had fired at police. 1 week later, a federal grand jury issued a 250-page report finding that at least 82 bullets had been fired by the SPU officers and that only 1 shot had been fired by the Chicago Black Panthers. After more than a decade, the legal case, which went all the way up to the Supreme Court, the government eventually settled in 1982, agreeing to pay $1.8 million to the estate of Hampton, Clark, and the surviving Black Panther members, with the federal, county, and city governments agreeing to split the bill. Fred Hampton was a revolutionary and a rising star in the Chicago Panthers, but this made him a target. Hampton's incredible charisma, his young, dynamic leadership, who started health clinics and the free breakfast program, as well as forming a rainbow coalition in the area. The outrage over the assassination of Fred Hampton, especially within Chicago's Black community, calls for the removal of Cook County's state attorney, Edward V. Hanramer, who often managed the police involved in the raid. Before the raid, Hanramer had considered himself a likely candidate for Chicago mayor, but in 1972, he was voted out of office, and this effectively ended his political career. Also in 1972, Huey Newton closed all Black Panther offices outside of the city of Oakland, and the Black Panther Party was formally disbanded in 1982. In 1990 and again in 2004, the Chicago City Council designated December 4th as Fred Hampton Day. This has been the life of Fred Hampton. If you like more stories like this, you can find those at onemikehistory.com. Also, hit the subscribe button, give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so at my Buy Me Coffee and my Patreon page, which you can find in the description below. And peace.
When we try to teach, but you don't have to struggle anymore. In this video, I'm going to show you how you need just 1 to 2 new students per month to be a full-time successful.
what time the fight is. If I have to go fight the next day, I can't sleep.
I'm like that. I'm like that. Something that's going on the next day keeps me up.
December 4th, 1969. Akua and Jerry was 19 years old and sleeping next to her fiance, the Illinois Black Panther Party chairman, Fred Hampton.
The next thing I remember was someone in our room shaking Chairman Fred. Chairman, wake up, wake up. Plaster was flying off the wall. You could smell the cordite.
19 years old. December 4th, 1969. Akua and Jerry was 19 years old and sleeping next to her fiance, the Illinois Party chairman, Fred Hampton.
The next thing I remember was someone in our room shaking Chairman Fred. Chairman, wake up, wake up. Plaster was flying off the wall. You could smell the cordite from the gunshot. If you've ever been under gunfire, 5 minutes is 5 hours. To you, it seems like forever. The shooting started back again. Then another voice unfamiliar to me said, "He's good now." I knew they were talking about Chairman Fred.
Fred Hampton was murdered by his government. But before that, he was a leader in a movement practicing a new kind of activism. A movement targeted because of its power to unite people.
Marking 1964 as a historic year in race relations, on July 2nd, President Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act. It was the strongest.
In the 1960s, racial progress in the U.S. was at a turning point. Activists won major civil rights victories, and the era of Jim Crow laws came to an end. But at the end of the decade, there were still deep social and economic gaps for Black people across the country. Black Americans continued to face high poverty, poor housing, and unemployment. And they still had little to no political representation. These disparities and an increase in brutal police violence led to uprisings across the country. Many young Black activists grew frustrated that the changes they hoped for hadn't come.
It's just the opposite of being a white man. That's not
After the police killing of an unarmed Black teen in San Francisco, 2 activists in Oakland, California, Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, founded what was initially called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Newton had studied law and knew it was legal to carry arms in California as long as they were not concealed. The Panthers began to patrol their communities. As the movement grew, several highly publicized confrontations with police would bring about mainstream awareness of the Black Panther Party. The allegations in these confrontations were serious, but the public accounts of them were typically one-sided and shaped largely by police. Media coverage depicted party members as a caricature of Black militancy.
The Black Panther Party was portrayed as a marauding gang. They said it goes to kill all the white people.
In reality, the Panthers did call for radical change.
What they were hoping for was a revolution. Revolution to overthrow the capitalist enterprise.
But what they called revolution might not actually sound so radical today.
Focused on socialism as a way of solving economic needs. They looked to places like Canada, which always had a democratic political system, but the economic system has always been socialism. So they want a democratic socialist country here in the United States, which they saw as a more equitable, more humane system.
They released a 10-point plan for broad social reform that called for an end to police brutality and for Black employment, housing, education, and freedom from prison and jails. Chapters began forming across the country. They started to implement social programs, which they called survival programs.
The Panthers would say, put that theory into practice. If you really want to change minds, you really want to meet the people where they are, you have to give them the services which they need.
The programs included food and clothing drives, free health clinics, and sickle cell disease testing, and were funded largely by volunteers and donations from businesses. One of their biggest programs was a free breakfast for children initiative.
Here we are living in 1966, 67, is the most wealthy nation in the world. And kids were going to school, especially in American communities. So one of the first community service programs were free schoolchildren.
And all the children had to do was
During this time, it was during Akua and Jerry, then known as Deborah Johnson, met Fred Hampton.
I was a student at Rice State College, and Chairman Fred had come up to the school and speak. And he say, in the breakfast program, we feed over 3,000 children a week. We're serious about making power to the people of reality. We're not just sitting up here jaw-jabbing and talking shit, you know. We about work. And I said, damn, he's serious about this business.
Fred Hampton grew up in Maywood, Illinois, just west of downtown Chicago. He became president of his local NAACP Youth Council in 1967 at 19 years old. Shortly after, he was recruited by a founder of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party.
Because of his charismatic skills, he quickly rise to the top of the crop.
Here he is at age 21, building and leading the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party.
Soon after they met, Jerry and Hampton became a couple.
Anybody that has met him or heard him speak, they say he wasn't bullshit. He was for real.
You gotta understand, this is like 55 people. If your dad struggle, your dad win. If your dad not struggle, then goddamn it, you don't deserve to win. Then you're willing to fight for it.
Chicago?
Let me tell you a story about these windows. Okay, so years ago, I used to be a personal trainer in my past life. And I used to train my client.
Chicago in particular was a place where the party's ideals especially resonated. It was then the second largest American city, and due to decades of discriminatory policies, also one of the most segregated. Chicago's mayor at the time, Richard J. Daley, opposed neighborhood integration. And in the 1950s, the city had begun to to redevelop certain neighborhoods, pushing low-income residents out and into dense. The Rican population was here in Lincoln Park, and poor white people were concentrated here in Uptown. These groups all faced similar problems.
They all had dilapidated schools. They all had dilapidated homes. They're all being drafted into Vietnam. Very few of those communities had health care.
In 1969, Hampton led the Panthers that threatened their community across racial lines.
What they had in common was their poverty. A revolution based on class solidarity that transcends race. They all had the same elder.
Hampton named the group the Rainbow Coalition. It included the Black Panthers, a Puerto Rican group called the Young Lords, and a group called the Young Patriots, made up of largely poor white migrants from Appalachia who had moved to Chicago seeking economic opportunity.
We don't hate the motherfuckers. We hate the whether he's white, black, brown, or yellow.
I don't mean sing kumbaya and make a quilt. I'm talking about bringing them together, common things that unite on. Not everything, but who could say that children do not deserve to have a healthy meal?
Anybody that has revolution on their mind. We're not a racist organization. We understand that racism is an excuse you for capitalism.
Hampton and other Panthers helped the Young Lords and Young Patriots launch their own social programs. They organized protests together. And it was working. Members were traveling across the country to organize Rainbow Coalition chapters.
Particularly where Black Panther chapters were, but also in these rural white communities as well, to bring the revolution to bear. This blows people's minds. These people are not supposed to get along, but here they are operating as brothers of struggle, as revolutionaries against the capitalist structure. And that was the threat to the state at the local level, but also at the national level.
In 1968, the FBI had sent around this internal memo. It outlined goals to prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist groups and prevent the rise of a messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. It wasn't written about Hampton specifically, but by 1969,
Chairman Fred Hampton was the one that fit the bill.
The revolution was in the air. And the ways in which the Panthers transcend those racial lines, especially the charismatic leadership of one like Fred Hampton, they saw him as a greater threat even than Martin Luther King or Malcolm X ever was.
In one FBI memo about the Black Panthers' breakfast program, they claimed their real purpose was to poison minds with anti-white propaganda and indoctrinate youngsters in hate and violence.
The FBI, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, had deemed the Black Panther Party as the #1 threat to the internal security of this country.
The FBI operated a counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO. It was a program that targeted dissident political groups in the U.S. Their methods typically went outside the law.
They were using tactics such as assassination, discrediting false narratives. They were falsely putting people in prison and exile, which were all illegal.
Several Black Panthers were killed or imprisoned, including the party co-founders. In Chicago, the party was also targeted by Mayor Daley and the Chicago police.
Our office was burned down at least 3 times. People would disappear. You never see their bodies again.
Before you go to bed, next time I am a revolutionary. Make that the last word. Please don't wake up and somebody might end up in what they call revolutionary.
Hampton, a rising star at just 21 years old, knew he was a target too. He'd been arrested in 1968 for allegedly robbing an ice cream truck and handing out $71 of ice cream. In 1969, he was sentenced to 2 to 5 years in prison. He appealed and was released on bond, but lost the appeal. He'd have to return to prison by December 6th.
loving life. Come on.
This year, Allo moves you with access to 3,000 classes. Practice all over the world, right from your mat. Yoga, strength, HIIT, boot camp.
Um, 14 Chicago police officers arrived outside Hampton's apartment on Chicago's west side. Inside, Hampton and Jerry and 7 other Panthers were asleep.
I was very pregnant. And the first thing I remember was Chairman Fred had fell asleep while talking on the phone. The next thing I remember was someone in our room started shaking the chair. Said, Chairman, wake up, the pigs are vamping. And I'm seeing Chairman Fred look up, and then he laid his head back down real slow.
Officers looked open the door and shot Mark Clark, a visitor from another party chapter. They shot a sleeping 18-year-old named Brenda Harris. Then they shot in the direction of Hampton's bed.
Mattress is just going, you can feel the bullets going to him too. I had moved over on top of Chairman Fred because there was shooting into our mattress. The person that had come into the room kept shouting, stop shooting, we have a pregnant sister in here. Eventually, the shooting stopped.
And Jerry was forced into the kitchen when she heard another voice.
Someone said he's barely alive, he'll barely make it. I assume they were talking about Chairman Fred. Steve said, he's good dead now. As they took me out and jammed a revolver to my stomach as I was handcuffed behind my back. I didn't look towards our bedroom because I didn't know what I would see or how I would respond.
The police fired nearly 100 shots. Fred Hampton and Mark Clark were dead. The 7 surviving Panthers were arrested. And police smiled as they removed Hampton's body from the scene. The Chicago police and the state's attorney's office quickly shaped the narrative to call it a gunfight, a battle, and a shooting.
Officers involved in the raid testified that they were fired on from 4 different rooms in the apartment by shotgun.
They played back a story that you could not even fathom. They gave a fictional account of what happened, vilified the Black Panther Party.
This attack by the Black Panthers on the police clearly demonstrates the true character of the Black Panther Party.
But experts and lawyers hired by the Panthers, along with other journalists, inspected the crime scene. The Panthers even opened the apartment so that anyone could examine it. And a drastically different picture emerged. It was clear that the police had fired unprovoked. Of the nearly 100 shots fired, only one possible shot would have come from a Panther's gun, likely from Mark Clark at the front door. The bullet holes that the police said came from Black Panthers were nail heads. Later, it also emerged that the FBI had assisted Chicago police with the raid. The FBI had an informant within the Black Panther Party named William O'Neill, who had become chief of security and Hampton's bodyguard. O'Neill had provided the FBI with a hand-drawn floor plan of the apartment. which the FBI then gave to Chicago police. And evidence strongly suggests that before the raid, O'Neill had drugged Hampton. In the years after Hampton's assassination, the police and the FBI continued to imprison dozens of party members across the country. The official Black Panther Party would continue to exist until 1982, but membership decreased dramatically, and it would never be the same.
And I hope it's one of you be that, and that's because that revolutionary struggle we need to be living, and I think that struggle is going to come. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?
Fred Hampton wanted revolution. Those in power wanted to destroy him and what he stood for. But they weren't totally successful.
Chairman Fred lives. You know what I'm saying? Through the military assault, through the destruction of the party as an organization itself, by the state, the legacy of the party is still here.
Today, the work of Fred Hampton is alive through some of the same programs that marked him as a threat.
Many of the programs that the Panthers created are now staples of our society. We didn't have free breakfast in schools prior to the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program. Those free clinics, almost every major college campus got a free legal aid clinic. The ways in which sickle cell testing is now respected as a disease by the CDC and others. None of that stuff existed before the party. I think that's revolutionary.
The history of the Black Panther Party is going toe to toe with this government. Will never die. Never die.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want to learn more about Fred Hampton, there's an amazing 1971 documentary called The Murder of Fred Hampton, available to stream via the Chicago Film Archives at the link in the description. They also have a film called American Revolution 2, which documents the work of